Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of the Bench Podcast presented to you by Anchor.fm. I'm Aaron Valentino, and as always, I'm joined alongside Brandon Ladd and Jacob Johnson with brand new glasses and a Miami Vice jersey, Jake.
Yeah, I got it in the mail today from China.
DHgate?
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
Great. And I got another one coming on the way.
There you go.
I got Trae Young on the way.
Oh, wow. That's the new Hawks one or the old Hawks jerseys?
The new one, the color, the city ones where it says Peach City or whatever.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yes.
So sports are almost back in full swing. The NHL comes back in tomorrow. Tomorrow the NHL is back for their first round of games in their playoff tournament. The NBA restarted last night as we're recording this, actually, when it goes up on a Friday. The Jazz beat the Pelicans last night, and the Lakers were able to beat the Clippers in the first two official games of the NBA bubble. MLB's gone absolutely insane. We're going to get to all that. We're going to start with MLB, of course. Outbreaks everywhere. 18 Marlins, 2 Phillies, 2 Cardinals have all tested positive for the coronavirus. There are so many games being canceled. Even just today, waking up, there was even more games canceled. I have the games canceled list right here. The Phillies have canceled 7 of their games. The Marlins have canceled 7 of their games. The Yankees and Orioles have had to cancel 4 of their games. The Blue Jays have had to cancel 3 of their games, as well as the Nationals, Cardinals, and Brewers. Guys, this is crazy. And I think when sports started coming back, when somebody or some buddies tested positive for the coronavirus, those guys would just self-quarantine. Everybody else would be retested. But Brandon, there are so many games getting canceled, and the question is the MLB season going to continue? This is just hard to believe.
The only thing I can predict is today, and I'll tell you 12 of 15 games will go on today. I can't tell you what will happen tomorrow. The tricky thing with this virus is the incubation period of 2 to 14 days. So unlike the flu, you're not going to test positive the day you think you have it or you have symptoms. You could not test positive for 7 days, but be spreading the virus in those 7 days. So it's a tricky thing where you don't know where a positive is going to hop up on a team. So it allows for situations that baseball players are not showing symptoms, but they're still in the same locker room as each other. But the interesting thing so far is you're not really seeing a spread to the other team. So that's the saving grace so far. So it's going to be interesting how long this can keep going, though.
Yeah, lad, you're right. The Marlins, they have a whole slew of players that have contracted it, but they really didn't pass it along to the other teams. But the other teams are taking that safe, mandatory route where, the Marlins played the Phillies and they immediately canceled their next games because the Phillies were worried about it. It's really a tough situation. Right now, everything is up in the air because so many of these 6 or 7 teams, they've had to cancel games. And, in a 60-game season, it's like what are you going to do about all these games missed? The Marlins are canceled, 9 or 10. I mean, regardless, the Marlins weren't going to do anything anyways. But at the time, they were 2-1. They had won 2 games. They were playing decent baseball.
At least, Jake.
So it's a tough call to see what they're going to do. I don't know what Rob Manfred's a fucking screw up anyways. So whatever he decides is not going to be the right decision. I'm sure he'll probably his smartest decision will be, let's give everyone the coronavirus so then they can't contract it again and we'll just cancel for 14 days and then start back up. That'd be something he would do. So right now, it's all up in the air.
It's really kind of crazy to think. Like, when Juan Soto tested positive, right, back last week, we were all like, okay, if Juan Soto tested positive, he's going to have to quarantine in his house. The rest of it will be fine. The games will go on like normal. I don't think anybody, Jake, could have expected the Marlins to contract 14 cases in one day. I mean, did they go out partying in, like, the Miami clubs or something? What the heck? Like, I don't understand what the heck happened to where the Marlins just caught all these cases. It's just so weird to think about. But Jake, what's a realistic thing that the MLB can do? Just kind of keep doing what they're doing, canceling games here and there, and try to make up double headers late in the year?
Yeah, and to touch on the first part that you said, for the Marlins, it must have been someone did not, stay safe, stay healthy. They must have went out somewhere, contracted from someone else, and then proceeded to give it to the rest of their teammates. But a realistic way is really what they're doing right now. They're going to continue to cancel games, and I think that the only way that changes is if they have to start canceling all the games on every single day for a week. If that happens, like Lad said, there's still 12, 15 baseball games going on today. We really haven't seen – so far everything's been in the NL side of teams that have had to cancel games, except for the East Coast with the Orioles and the Yankees. Nothing has touched L.A. Nothing has touched out west. Nothing has touched down south in Texas or, Colorado. Teams like that, nothing has hit that way. It's really been all on the East Coast, which have done such great measures protecting it. So right now, the realistic way of happening is what they're doing right now. And until something changes where someone on every single MLB team has it, then I think that's what they're going to keep having to do. But we'll see what's going to happen if someone on every team gets it.
It's going to be curious that happens. Just a statistical thing here. If you would hope that not one team has it, but two teams have it, so they can evenly make up the games. Like, it got a little weird with having an odd number of teams out of action, because then you couldn't just have those two teams play each other in 7-inning doubleheaders later in the season. So the schedule got a bit more confusing. Like, they scrunched up some Yankees-Orioles games, and they're saying that the Yankees will play the Rays in a doubleheader next weekend to save, 2 days. So they're trying different things to open up the schedules that they're going to be able to make up these games in September.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And two more things I want to talk about before we, move on here. 7-inning doubleheaders, it's a thing that the minor leagues have been using for a couple of years. Jake, we saw it in action 2 years ago when the Syracuse Mets took on the Pawtucket Red Sox in a 2-game, 7-inning doubleheader where we saw Tim Tebow have 2 RBIs. It's something that MLB has experimented with for a few years now. Brenna, what's your thought on the 7-inning doubleheader? Would you want to keep it for the rest of eternity? Because this is another one of those things that baseball has talked about for improving pace of play, or is it just going to be for this season? It's not baseball.
For pace of play, it makes sense. For someone that really religiously follows the record books, though, and tracks people's statistics year to year, it would be a little funky that you're losing. Let's say you play 10 doubleheaders in a season, so then you lose 6 innings per doubleheader, so 5 times 6 is 30 innings. So then 30 innings is let's say 12 at-bats. So it's something there, but it's still not that big. So I would say going forward, this is something they should adopt.
And, to continue on that point with Lad, it's in order for these games to go quicker, because that's the point of a doubleheader. A doubleheader is you miss the game before. You need to make this game up. That is why you're playing it. And you're not going to skip another game. So for these doubleheaders, in high school, that's what we played. Is if you had a doubleheader, you're playing 2 7-inning games. You're not going to play 2 9-inning games. So, the minor league system adopted it a few years back, and then the MLB started picking up on it. I don't think it's a horrible idea, like Lad said with the stats, but a lot of players seem to like it because you're getting out of there early. You're playing a game at 1:10, and then you're going to finish at 4:30, take a break, get something to eat, sit down for about an hour, get ready for your second game, play it at 7:10. So it seems to work out very well. Gives the players a rest in between. It's not a bad idea.
No, it's not a horrible idea, and I think especially for this season, I think it works well. They're pretty adamant about trying to get all these games in. I don't know how realistic that is. Rob Manfred and company continue to screw up in 2020. We'll see. Last thing I want to talk about, nothing to do with the coronavirus, Joe Kelly. This man was ready to take on the entire Houston Astros team by himself and got an 8-game suspension. He wasn't even thrown out in the game. Jake, What was your reaction to an 8-game suspension by Joe Kelly? You're already shaking your head. I got a feeling all three of us are going to have a few choice words here for Rob.
Oh, my God. It's ridiculous. If this was a 162-game season, Joe Kelly would have been suspended 22 games. Jose Urena, the pitcher for the Marlins, who purposely hit Ronald Acuna, said he meant to do it because he didn't want to give up another leadoff home run to him because that's how good Acuna is. They just didn't want him to get a hit off him, so he pegs him. Got 6 games in a 162-game season. Joe Kelly gets 8 for doing this to the Astros. He made a sad face, and he gets 8 games. Carlos Correa, they deserve to get pegged. Oh, my God. The crazy thing is not one player on the Astros received any game suspension for cheating and winning a World Series. But Joe Kelly gets 8 games for almost hitting 2 batters. And the one on Correa was a curveball. If he was trying to peg him, you'd think he would have thrown a fastball at him. Not a curveball. He even said, I don't know where my fastballs are going. I have no location on my pitches. I can't stand Rob Manfred. So many mean things want to come out of my mouth to this man. And I hope I see him one day. And I just talk to him in very subtle tones and then hit him with a right hook to the face.
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate here just to get off of right hooking people in the face. But it's the location of the pitches. It's a tricky situation because MLB is saying, okay, 8 games is our standard for a suspension, so it should have been 3 games if you want an 8-game suspension in the current conversions. So it should have been a 3-game suspension, but the only reason he got suspension was because of the location of the pitches, because you can't throw pitches up there. If he hit them in the hip, there's no suspension. I'm cool with the Astros getting hit in the hip. I'm not cool with people taking balls to the helmet. I don't care what you did. You should not be taking baseballs to the helmet ever.
They deserve it, though.
I agree that no one deserves to get pegged in the head with a 96-mile-an-hour baseball, but 8 games, and it's not like he injured Correa. It's not like he injured Bregman. I mean, 8 games is a lot. And the fact that they knew this was going to happen, like they knew going into the season that people were going to be pissed off and people were going to throw at the Astros. Joe Kelly was it's going to happen again. There's no doubt in my mind that another team is going to walk in there completely pissed off and throw at them. 8 games, that's 22 games and 162. It's ridiculous. Rob Manfred and company continue to just absolutely screw up. And everybody loved Joe Kelly. Everybody was like, this man is a hero. He's the greatest thing to happen to baseball this year so far. 8 games is just ridiculous. And they just continue. I heard yesterday on the radio, Major League Baseball's operations continue to just completely throw up on themselves. They keep doing bad work. It's just not okay. It's not okay for the sport. And Joe Kelly, I'm sorry. I loved what you did. Maybe not at their heads necessarily, but that sad face walking off the mound will always be a legendary Major League Baseball picture in my eyes. Jake, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, what I'm saying is he didn't even hit one of them.
No, he didn't.
He didn't make contact.
He hit Bregman, but Bregman in the hip.
Yeah, and so I could see maybe 2 games, 2 or 3 games, because he did intentionally throw at Bregman.
Yeah, I would have been okay with 2 games.
But he did not intentionally throw at Correa. It was if he was intentionally throwing at a batter, it's a fastball. You don't intentionally throw at a batter with a curveball. That's just not how you do it. If you want to hit somebody, you want them to hit them with your fastest pitch and a curveball. Joe Kelly's curveball is between 79 and 82 miles per hour. His fastball is between 94 and 97. You're telling me if you wanted to intentionally hit him, he was only going to hit him with an 80-mile-per-hour curveball, not a 95-mile-per-hour fastball? No. He ended up striking him out and walked off the mound, and he said I'm not going to repeat what he said, but he said, you swing like a bleep, and then Correa started talking back to him, and that's when the benches had to clear. No fists were thrown, nothing. And right now, I 100% agree with what Joe Kelly did. As a baseball player, you look at that and you're like, they deserve it. As a baseball fan, they cheated to win the World Series. They didn't get suspended in any games. So for him to peg them, I fully condone every single team in the MLB to do that to them this year, and I hope they do.
Jake, to quote one of your childhood heroes here, Chipper Jones on the ESPN broadcast, Chipper Jones said it would be selfish of me to get an 8-game suspension. That's why I'm not a fan of MLB players throwing at people, because it's a selfish act to get yourself suspended and to put your team in that situation to get hurt. Those are Chipper Jones' words exactly. So, I like MLB's explanation because Joe Kelly has a history of throwing at Yankees when he was a Boston Red Sox setup man. Him and Tyler Austin got into a fight on Sunday Night Baseball a couple years ago. So he has a history of this, but I still see the act of throwing at someone, I don't care what they do, as a selfish act, because now the Dodgers are without Joe Kelly for, in theory, 22 games.
It's a tough call. I get what both of you guys are saying. I think 8 games was a lot, especially considering you didn't hit Correa in the head and considering that they knew it was going to happen. They knew it was going to happen. The fans of Major League Baseball were 100% behind Joe Kelly. Maybe not 100%, but most of them were behind Joe Kelly. 8 games a lot. That's all I'm going to say. Moving on now to the NBA. They are back. 2 games last night. 2 great games last night. I watched the first quarter of the Jazz game, the Jazz-Pelicans game, and I got to say, it looks awesome. The NBA, Brandon, did an awesome job with not just the court, but in general. They've just done an awesome job with everything, creating this environment, and the fans have been loving like all the behind-the-scenes stuff that the players are showing everybody. It's been great. And the NBA, I was saying this last night on the couch with my mom when we were watching the first quarter. It is amazing to me how much better the NBA is run at the top compared to the rest of the other sports, because it's uncomparable. It's uncomparable.
Quickly, a note here, Jake, you must agree with me. A normal person watches the second half of the Clippers-Lakers game and not the first quarter of the Jazz.
The Mets were on at 7, and I like to torture myself watching.
I don't know why you would ever watch New York Mets
games. Yeah, I know.
Anyways, the visual was appealing, and I like the movement of the fans on the scoreboard, and like the cheers are a little different because you can like be on your phone and it's an app and you decide how much you cheer for your team in that moment. So it's kind of cool. I'm still having nightmares from Fox MLB Saturday, where the first 2 games of the day they put video game fans in the seats.
They did that last night at the Mets game.
It was not a good look because they're 2 seconds delayed. People have glitches. They're pouting during the game like they're thinking about, is this going to be a 2-1 changeup or a 2-1 fastball coming? And then the reaction's 2-second delay. It just looks horrible, and they're not in the seats for every single camera angle. So the NBA is doing this right with their simplistic approach, because the MLB has gotten a little too complex with the virtual fans. So I'm really a fan with the NBA look, and I must say that going forward, I think the playoff games, they could probably do even more visual stuff to make it more appealing.
Yeah, and the one thing that really intrigued me is I saw a post, it was either Bleacher Report or House of Highlights, and there's other NBA stars watching these games. You look at the Lakers-Clippers, there was a group of NBA players watching it, and it said, this looks like an AAU game. And I thought more about that. I was like, yeah, you know how many NBA players show up for AAU games? It's really cool to see. I unfortunately got to watch like the fourth quarter of the Jazz Pelicans game. I was at work until 11 o'clock. And by the time I got home, it was like, I can't open my eyes to watch this game. But I was able to watch good finish of that game. Brandon Ingram had a hell of a game. Just the way that they're doing it, the bubble setup, there's been a couple issues with it. Lou Williams decided he wanted to go to the club.
Rashad Holmes wanted takeout.
Yeah, and get quarantined for 14 days. So we've had a few players who aren't the brightest, but it seems like everyone else is having a great time with it. Looks like the play is great. The scrimmage games were awesome. And the NBA right now is top pedestal compared to all the other sports, except for maybe NASCAR and the UFC.
Yeah, but out of the major four,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just insane. They're so much better run than every other organization. I think maybe these first 8 regular season games are a little much. I think we all know why they did it. It's to get that guy named Zion on the Pelicans into the playoffs. But, I digress. I mean, it's still fun. It's still fun for the fans to see. People like Zion. I get it. I like Zion. It's fun to watch him play. It's fun to watch young players play. But they continue to execute it perfectly. But, Todd, with your point with the virtual fans, from far away, they don't look terrible. I actually think they look pretty good when it's far away. Up close, you're right. It looks pretty bad. And also, it's not keyed into every camera across the stadium. So there are some shots where it's like, oh, it looks like there's fans there. And then there's a shot similar, but not the exact same, that has the cardboard cutouts or no fans in the seats. So you're right.
Yeah.
That's bad. I think Fox is the only one that's doing that. And Colin Cowherd claimed that it was his idea on his show, which
he said it was going to be the greatest thing ever. He trashed ESPN. He said ESPN's going to get no ratings this year because their broadcasts are so boring.
He's always trashing every other company that is not Fox or Fox Sports. Oh,
I hate that, man.
Lad sent me a video last night on Instagram. It was Colin Cowherd and Nick Wright. They were plastered. Like, Jake, I couldn't even believe it. Nick Wright and Colin Cowherd are at Colin Cowherd's house, and they're plastered on Instagram Live. Like, it was – I only watched the first 2 minutes of it because I my brain couldn't mentally handle it. But it was so funny. It was just so funny. But moving on from Colin Cowherd, let's get to some actual, basketball rather than looking at it. The 2 major questions going into the bubble with the teams, I think. The first one is, of course, Jake, is Zion going to be able to make it to the 9th seed and play the Grizzlies for a 1-game playoff?
Last night I thought they were going to pull with that game. They had a lead. I kept checking the score every time I'd walk by the TV in the dining room. And they had a decent-sized lead up to the third quarter. And then the fourth quarter, the Jazz pulled it close. I was really hoping they were going to pull it out. I want to see Zion on the playoffs. I love Zion. Loved him since he was at Duke. Loved watching his AAU highlights. I want them to come back and get in the playoffs. Last night that's a heartbreaker because you don't have a lot of games now. You only have 8 or 9 to get right into the playoffs there. And every game counts. And losing that one by 2 last night was a heartbreaker. They're really going to have to turn things around. And Brandon Ingram keeps playing the way he does, though. And Lonzo played incredible last night, Zion. If they keep playing like that, I think that they have a really, really good chance to get in. But they got to win those close games. They can't lose by 2, can't lose by 3, 4 to these teams, especially. The Utah Jazz are good, but that was a very winnable game last night.
Yeah, B.I. is my number 1 candidate for most improved player of the year, but that's a different story for a different day. There's no moral victories in this bubble because it is so tight and 8 games are going to fly by so quickly. So there's absolutely no moral victories for this fight for the 9th seed. So the Pelicans took a step back last night, not being able to win that game at the end. I would favor a fully healthy Trailblazers team now. Not many people are talking about that. The ESPN experts said that 87% of them expect the Trailblazers to make it as the 8th seed now, so get to the 9th seed, then win the game against the Grizzlies. So that's how much favor they're giving them. That's how little chance they're giving Zion. So it's going to be interesting there. Healthy Trailblazers. But another thing we need to consider here, when are these star-studded teams, like the last 3 games, the Pelicans and Trailblazers are going to play against teams, when are they going to pull the plug? Because last night, Kawhi and LeBron both played 40 minutes, and they played it like a playoff game. When are we going to get to the point that LeBron's going to play 10 minutes in a game because they've locked it up? They have nothing to play for. So when is that plug going to be pulled and they're going to be happy with these exhibition games they're playing right now?
I think in the Lakers case, wouldn't it be just so that they get the 1 seed? I don't think they have it right now. They're 6.5 ahead of the Clippers.
They'll have it tomorrow.
After last night. I mean, they'll have it soon. I would think, it's – and like you said this before we started recording, LeBron wants to be Kawhi. And if Kawhi's playing 40 minutes, I think LeBron is going to play 40 minutes. That may be a little bit of a conspiracy considering they're both in the playoffs and it really doesn't matter. But I think LeBron was going to play as long as, they don't have the 1 seed locked in. I mean, who knows? He could play 40 minutes in all 8 of these games. He's LeBron James. If he wants to play, he's going to play. As who said that? Lou Williams, I think, said that. It was either Lou Williams or Patrick Beverley that said that on Twitter. Back to the Pelicans discussion, though. I don't know if I'm taking them over a healthy Trailblazers team, like you said, Lad. They also have to overcome the Kings as well. I don't know. I like Dame time. I don't think they're going to overcome the Trailblazers. And the Kings are a good team, too. They're about even with the Kings right now. They have one more loss than the Kings. They've played one more game than them after last night, obviously. But we'll see. I mean, the NBA dreamt up this 8-9 seed thing so that way Zion and Ja Morant could play. I don't know if he's going to get there. Looking at the other teams ahead of him, maybe not. Moving on. First off, Jake, we'll start with you. We got 2 more questions here before, we got one more question before we predict who we think could win the finals. Is LeBron just going to be on a mission? Like, does he have a legitimate shot at this title?
Kind of to touch on what Lad said earlier about LeBron playing 40 minutes a game. I think once they lock it up, he will play every game, but he won't be playing 40 minutes. He'll be playing 15. He'll be playing 20 because he only has 8 games to get ready for this. He's been off a long time. He's only got 8 games to get ramped up for the playoffs. He needs to stay fresh. He needs to stay out on the court, play live talent. So I think that he'll play 20 minutes, 15 minutes, and the wins don't really matter to them at that point. Now, to answer your question, I have said this from the beginning. Remember in our dorm room, we all got our little chalkboard, and we all wrote down who we thought was going to be the top 8 in the East, top 8 in the West. I was the only one of us that had the Lakers at number 1, and I am sticking to that. I think LeBron, he wants another one. He said that this is his year, that the bubble or not, it's not going to stop him. He wants to win another championship, and this is the year that the Lakers get back to it, and they do it again.
You have a point there, but there's so much competition in the West, and they're finally healthy. This is the healthiest we've seen Kawhi and Paul George together. The Clippers' full entourage, geez, I can't say that word. Aaron, can you say it for me?
Entourage.
Thank you. Their full team played 11 games this year. In those 11 games, they were 10-1. That's all I've heard on Fox Sports the past 5 days from Skip Bayless and Colin Cowherd. So if the Clippers are healthy, that's a mountain that's hard to climb. They weren't healthy last night. They didn't have Trez and they didn't have Lou Will. So there's 2 40 points together that you didn't have last night in the game. So the Lakers are going to have to be better if they're going to beat the Clippers in 7 games. But also the Nuggets are healthy. Now we're talking about Michael Porter Jr. and Bol getting minutes. Like, we might have the new look Nuggets. That's something new. Portland's going to be a bitch to try to beat in a first-round series. The Lakers might be decimated after having to play 6-game series to get to the Clippers. So I'm saying it's not going to be easy. It's going to take LeBron's best effort ever. I'm going to take Giannis's quote. This season won't have an asterisk next to it. It will actually be the hardest playoffs they've ever played. So I'm not doubting him, but I'm saying it will be the greatest feat he's ever done if he's going to make it to an NBA Finals.
It's hard to bet against LeBron. And especially with the way he's played this year, and especially with the way him and Anthony Davis have played this year, it's really hard to bet against LeBron. I would like to personally, I would like to see him win another championship. I could be in the minority there. But final question, we'll start with Brandon Ladd. Brandon Ladd, who is winning the 2020 NBA Bubble Finals?
So the NBA Finals, I'm going to tell you who's going to be in there. After last night's game, it's going to be the Clippers. And I'll tell you after tonight's game if it's going to be the Celtics or Bucks. I'm hearing Chris Middleton's in the worst shooting shape of his life. So Jason Tatum and the Celtics might have a chance. So I will say Clippers over Celtics in 6 games.
I am going to go from the start since day 1 of the NBA season, the Lakers. And I will say versus the Bucks, Giannis versus LeBron. One of the greatest finals ever, I think, in my opinion, because they're both going to be wanting to win it so bad. And I'm going to have the Lakers in 7.
It's hard for me to – again, it's hard to bet against LeBron for me. I think it's either going to be Lakers, Clippers. I like your point about the Nuggets with Michael Porter Jr. and Bol coming on and getting minutes and killing the game. So the Nuggets could be a sleeper team there, but I don't think the Jazz are better than the Clippers or Lakers. I definitely don't think the Thunder are, not the Rockets. And the Mavericks and Grizzlies, I don't think they have the talent either. So I think it's either going to be the Lakers or the Clippers. It's hard for me. Again, it's hard to bet against LeBron. I think I'm going to go with him. Out of the East, I don't know. It could honestly be any. It could be the Bucks, but the Bucks couldn't get it done last year. I don't think it's going to be the Raptors. I didn't like any of the teams in the East last year, and the Raptors ended up winning it, and I really didn't like them. So maybe they'll surprise me again. The Celtics are always kind of there. I wouldn't mind seeing them, and the Heat are good as well. Those top 4 teams to me are really good. And the 76ers, I know they're the 6th seed too, but with Embiid and Simmons and the way that they played last year in the playoffs, I don't think the 76ers have the shooting. I would probably have to go with your prediction, Jake. I would probably go Lakers, Bucks. I know that's super boring, the 1 seed versus the 1 seed. But I don't like – again, I'm not a huge fan of any of the teams out east. The Bucks are clearly the best one, in my opinion, if you look at everything out there. So I would say Lakers, Bucks, and I think LeBron gets number 4. I really do. I think it would be good for him. I think it would be good for the sport if LeBron won. It'd be nice to see the Lakers, Kobe. I don't know. It would be great. It would be a great storyline for sure. Moving on, final topic now. The NFL season is right around the corner. Training camp, the NFL Players Association and the NFL owners have agreed on a deal for safety protocols to get, back into training camp and start. There's no preseason games this year. Brendan Ladd poses the question, does the NFL need a bubble model? It seems to be the only model that's working. Baseball, it doesn't appear to be working. In the NHL, they had 0 cases, and they didn't even start playing yet. And the NBA has obviously had 0 cases for a while now. Brandon, I'll pose it to you first. Do we need to see an NFL bubble? I don't know how it would work, though.
I don't know how it's going to work, and now we're going to bring fans into the equation because we're going to have 50% capacity in most NFL stadiums. I'm hearing Dallas might fill it to the roof with 100,000 people just for the advantage. So now we're bringing a ton of animals into the barn that weren't in the barn to begin with. So I will say this, the NFL's only bubble option would be to turn the training facilities into a hotel, keep everyone and their families there, maybe keep them in the Holiday Inn across the road. I don't know how that works, but you got to do something like that, and then you got to travel for the games because the MLB model of going home at the end of the day is not working.
Yeah, and we've seen that, as you just said, the NBA is working, the NHL is working, the MLB is not working, and the NFL's already had a bunch of players opt out. 6 of the Patriots, the Giants right tackle. So many of these players are opting out, deciding they didn't want to play, and for health concerns. And obviously, they would prefer family over money, which is honestly a good thing to see in today's society. So right now, with all these players opting out, they're really worried about what the NFL is going to do. And Roger Goodell is right up there on the list with Rob Manfred as awful commissioners. So it would be really hard because you have 90 players on almost every NFL team. Then you got to keep the training staff. You got to keep the coaches. All of those people in a hotel, I don't even know if you have enough space for that. These multi-million-dollar players aren't going to want to stay in a double-bedroom hotel room
At the Holiday Inn.
at the Holiday Inn for 17 games with their 3 wives and their 17 children that they have. So it's like you're not going to be able to get people to stay in the Holiday Inn.
Why'd you have to make them all have 3 wives? That's so weird.
If they have 3 wives, 17 kids, just put them in the hotel.
It's like Antonio Cromartie.
I don't know. I think the only way a bubble plan works is if you have something like the NBA and NHL, is if you have limited games. There's 12-man rosters on an NBA team. There's 53 on an NFL. So I don't know how that works. Excuse me. And also, I think it only works if you have facilities where you can play 3 games at a time, 4 games at a time, where you can constantly rotate teams in. I don't know a place of that in the country that has for professional NFL capacity stadiums. And I'm not even talking about fans. If there's no fans, that's fine. But facilities where are equal to what an NFL stadium would have. I don't know how that works. So I don't think a bubble model for the NFL necessarily works. They're claiming right now, from what I've heard, it's going to be pretty close to normal. The Jets and Giants are going to have fans. I know they're going to be – I don't know what their final decision on fans are going to be. I honestly think if the Dallas Cowboys have 100,000 people in their stadium and the Jets and Giants have nobody, I'm sorry, that's unfair. That's completely unfair. So I think the NFL should abolish fans altogether just to make everybody safer. It's a tough call. I don't think the NFL is going to go with a bubble, though. I don't see how it works. So they'll go with the normal NFL schedule. I don't know if that's going to work either. People are claiming there's going to be no football this year, which would be really disappointing. I just don't see a bubble situation working. But that's going to do it today for the Bench Podcast, guys. Do you have anything else to add before we send it off?
NASCAR in New Hampshire this weekend. I believe there's fans, Jake. You can talk about it after. PGA Tour's going to TPC, Memphis, Southwind. The St. Jude Championship next weekend is the PGA Championship. It's going to be interesting. Tiger's ready for it with his back. That's about it, Jake. Anything else?
So sad that I can't be at New Hampshire this weekend. It's just so disappointing that I go there every year, and I can't this year, and it's so sad, and I'm very depressed.
That is going to do it for the Bench Podcast today. Guys, we're close to doing this podcast like together-ish.
Together-ish, yes.
I don't know why you're shaking your head like that.
Because I'm not allowed to go at your house.
Oh, yeah, right. Right.
We'll talk about that another time off the record.
Yeah, we're going to have to talk about that off the record. But that's going to do it for the Bench Podcast today. Thank you to Anchor for sponsoring today's podcast. For Jacob Johnson, Brandon Ladd, I'm Aaron Valentino. Have a great rest of your quarantined week, everybody.